Hello everyone, you have come to Tata Comic Preview channel. Let read together. Have fun. This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. The appearance of Wuya's diary shattered his defenses and arguments. Zhou had thought long and hard after obtaining the diary. Sometimes, his mind would wander to it while he meditated on the heavenly writing scrolls. What kind of person could return from the dead? Even a person such as Yuan'er could not come back to life even with the help of the mysterious Wuya woman. How did Zhenghai manage that? In truth, even if he could not find the answer from his memories, he could still find it in the books. Watering them to bring them back to life. This sentence was too obvious of a clue. Wuya remained kneeling as he slowly said, several hundred years ago, the Wookieans once lived inside Great Yen. When the war broke out, the Wookieans had to migrate elsewhere. They traveled from Yang province in the easternmost region to Liang province in the westernmost region. All was well, in the beginning. Wuya continued to say, the Wookieans were caught in the crossfire of the war between Great Yen and Lulan. They were nearly wiped out. Only 3 tribesmen survived. Eldest senior brother was one of them. They were still young back then. They had to beg for a living and sleep on the streets. They were beaten, cursed at, and scorned. Eldest senior brother often stole food for his fellow comrades. Eldest senior brother is unyielding and stubborn in nature. Sometimes, he wouldn't even bow his head after a beating. Zhou had experienced this firsthand. Zhenghai's temperament could simply be described as being stubborn. It was nearly impossible to change Zhenghai's mind once he had made up his mind. Then, 2 out of the 3 were beaten to death. Eldest senior brother was sold off by some traffickers to Lulan. Wuya paused at this moment. He looked up slightly, trying to gauge Zhou's expression. He discovered Zhou's expression was the usual. He could not figure out what Zhou was thinking. When Wuya paused, Zhou asked, why didn't the Wookieans come back to life after their deaths? It's difficult for ordinary Wookieans to achieve that. The conditions for it to happen are strict. Wookieans who started cultivating would also need to be looked after by someone else. Besides, Wookieans can only be resurrected thrice. Every time they die, they would lose 300 years of their lives. Now that eldest senior brother is a peak 8-leaf cultivator, he's supposed to have 1,000 years of life. Unfortunately. Wuya trailed off. Zhou was deep in thought. He understood the situation. If the Wookieans could be resurrected without limits, they would be immortal. Was there not a single person in the vast cultivation world who broke free from these shackles? Continue, Zhou said. Eldest senior brother thought that life would be easier once he was in Lulan. However, not only did it become worse, but he did not even get a good night's rest. An aristocrat in Lulan loathed Great Yen. In search of pleasure, he bound eldest senior brother, Gouge, and cut him with a knife every day. Every cut caused eldest senior brother excruciating pain. This went on for 7 days before he eventually bled to death. At this point, Wuya clenched his fists, and his knuckles whitened. His emotions were clearly agitated as he continued to say, perhaps, the heavens pitied eldest senior brother and didn't think his time was up. Coincidentally, he was dumped into a muddy pool and remained there for 49 days. After he came back to life, he followed a caravan from Lulan and headed east, back to Lulan. Then, he officially became your disciple, master. When Wuya finished speaking, he remained on his knees. However, his back was ramrod straight. Then, he said, I'm willing to help eldest senior brother conquer the world. I've never regretted this nor will I ever regret it. After hearing what Wuya had to say, Zhou's thoughts were complicated. His mind was filled with thoughts about Zhenghai and Shangrong's past. Whether it was the fair folk, the nobleman nation, or the Wookieans, they were all related to the longevity of life. According to what his disciples had said, if Ji Tiandao truly wanted to use his disciples to attain the 9-leaf stage or obtain longevity, why did he not do it? His 9 disciples should have ended up becoming sacrifices, after all. What happened in between? Lu Zhou glanced at the diary. He asked, "How do you explain this diary?" "That's why I'm begging you, Master, please spare eldest senior brother this once." What's recorded in the diary happened when eldest senior brother had just entered the 8-leaf stage. It was his second death, Wuya said. Second death? Since Zhenghai had joined the Evil Sky Pavilion, he had begun cultivating. With his cultivation base and strength, how could he have died so easily? "I'm afraid you're the only one who knows the reason for that, Master," Wuya said. Lu Zhou frowned. He stood up, placed his hands behind his back, and began pacing. If he knew the reason, there would not be so much trouble now. After carefully searching through his memories, he found nothing. "Oh, Ji Tiandao. Did you really seal your memories of you killing your disciples?" Although Lu Zhou was only a transmigrator, and these things had nothing to do with him, he was now playing the role of Ji Tiandao. He was destined to be unable to break free from this. "You suspect that I killed Zhenghai?" Lu Zhou asked. If this had been brought up when he had just transmigrated here, Lu Zhou would have suspected that Ji Tiandao had killed Zhenghai as well. However, it seemed to him now that there was more than meets the eye. Ji Tiandao's fiery temper aside, from the fragments of memories he did not think Ji Tiandao was a cruel and heartless person. The term fiend path was nothing more than an umbrella term given by individuals from the opposing faction. "I dare not." Wuya continued, "I'm willing to look for the memory crystal." Previously, Wuya would never agree to search for the memory crystal. Now that his master was at the 9-leaf stage, those worries no longer existed. "Listen here, Wuya." Lu Zhou raised his voice. "Yes, Master. I'm giving you 2 missions. The first one is to search for the memory crystal. The second one is to persuade Zhenghai to return," Lu Zhou said imposingly. Wuya kowtowed and said, "Yes, Master. However." "However what?" "I have no questions about the first mission, but eldest senior brother can be stubborn. I'm afraid." Wuya wore a helpless expression on his face. Wuya had expected Lu Zhou to insist on him completing the mission, but Lu Zhou only said, "I'll leave it to you." "That will be all." "You'll leave it to me?" Wuya was stunned. However, when he saw his master walking toward the rush cushion, he no longer dared to stay any longer. He rose to his feet and said, "I'll take my leave now, Master. Look for Panzhong to restore your cultivation base. Take the peacock plume with you." "Thank you, Master." Wuya was overjoyed. He picked up his peacock plume and retreated reverently from the room. Lu Zhou turned around and was about to meditate on the heavenly writing scrolls when he looked up and saw the words on his wall. Is there such a coincidence under the heavens? If it's true, does this mean I have another disciple? Someone with the name Sure? Meanwhile, in a certain restaurant in Runan City, Zhang scratched his head and wondered, a woman with the surname Luo? This must be a joke. Old villain Ji really thinks that I can do anything. Zhang stroked his chin. Although there's nothing I can't do, this isn't how I'm supposed to be treated. He grabbed a waiter who was passing by and asked, "Excuse me, do you know where I can find a woman with the surname Luo?" The waiter was taken aback by this treatment. "Dear customer. Why, you should look for her yourself." Inwardly, he muttered to himself, "This man has a few screws loose." Zhang pushed him away and said, "The surname Luo. A person who helped Yuntian Luo reach the highest level with a single step. Why doesn't any of this feel real to me? Forget it, I'll just start searching randomly then." Zhang leaped out of the restaurant and vanished with a flurry of movements. Dozens of miles north from the Yuan'er sect, Yuan'er rode on Bayan. It was flying slowly. He was enjoying the scenery, it put him in a good mood. Bayan suddenly cried out. Yuan'er was puzzled. Or, up ahead, Yu Shangrong saw a forest. Black smoke was rising as though something had caught fire. Let's avoid it. Bian adjusted its direction and skirted the forest. The skies above them were shrouded with smoke. Poison? Yu Shangrong frowned slightly. His instincts told him that the black smoke was not as simple as it seemed. He steered Bian and flew low. At this moment, a peculiar voice rang from the forest. Why don't you come down and have a talk, my friend? Yu Shangrong appeared calm. He had expected that someone would stand in his way. The black cloud of smoke was clearly meant to stop him. Just as well. Yu Shangrong brought Bian to a slow descent. 3 people walked out of the forest. One of them was lavishly dressed with a sparse mustache. He stood in the lead as he said, "My friend, I'd like to buy something off you." "What is it?" "The lotus severing survival pills." At this moment, the lavishly dressed man waved his hand. The other 2 brought out their riches and packed them before they handed the bundle of riches to him. Cultivators were never attracted by materialistic items. "Are you certain that you want to buy them?" Yu Shangrong smiled faintly. "Naturally. You can think of this as a robbery as well," the lavishly dressed man said as he returned Yu Shangrong's smile. "The Yuan'er sect is protected by a barrier. We've caught quite a number of their customers. However, this is our first time seeing one on a mount." Yu Shangrong nodded. "You can use witchcraft. Are you from Lulan or Roli?" The lavishly dressed man was slightly taken aback by Yu Shangrong's words. He said, "You have a keen eye, my friend. Since Great Yan has entered the lotus severing era, we, Rulians, naturally, can't lag behind." "So, they're from Roli." After thinking about it, Yu Shangrong found this normal. Great Yan's cultivators were now severing their lotuses. When there were enough 9-leaf cultivators, that would be the day where the other tribes were going to be exterminated. Rongxi and Rengbei would not let this opportunity slip through their fingers. It was only natural for them to send scouts here. Rulians. Yu Shangrong maintained his smile. "My sword never kills those without a name." "You're proud, alas, it's ill-placed." The lavishly dressed man waved his hand. The 2 others removed their clothes, revealing their sculpted bodies. Their skin was covered in densely packed runes. They seemed strange and ostentatious. Well, they were other tribesmen, after all. Whiz. Whiz. 2 Wolf King avatars appeared. Yu Shangrong glanced at them. They were both 2-leaf golden lotus avatars. The golden lotus could be used as a means to attack and defend. If the lotus, which possessed considerable defensive strength, was used well, a 2-leaf golden lotus avatar was, theoretically, much superior to a 2-leaf avatar without a golden lotus. Alas, Yu Shangrong was not one who could be defined by theory alone. Yu Shangrong did not expect to run into other tribesmen here. The 2 Rulians charged at him. With their Wolf King avatars, their strength and agility were rather shocking. Whoosh. The 2 Wolf King avatars leaped and lunged at Yu Shangrong in unison. Yu Shangrong remained unruffled as he patted Bian's body and said, "Move to the side. I'm worried that I might hurt you." Or. A seemingly unwilling and disdainful expression appeared on Bian's face, but it did as it was told. With great reluctance, it took several steps back. When the 2 avatars were descending on Yu Shangrong. Zing. Yu Shangrong unsheathed his longevity sword. It glowed brilliantly with a scarlet light. With his sword in hand, he moved swiftly. Instead of retreating, he advanced. With a tap of his feet, he leaped nimbly into the air and forcefully swung his sword. There was a blur of movements. Not even the shadow of the sword could be clearly seen. Traceless sword. The longevity sword slid across the 2 Wolf King avatars. The 2 avatars shattered immediately. Concurrently, 2 miserable cries resonated in the air. Yu Shangrong landed behind the 2 Rulians. He did not even turn back to look at them to know the outcome. The longevity sword returned to its scabbard. Pa. 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 The lavishly dressed man clapped his hands and said, "You're quite skilled with the sword, my friend. You flatter me." The lavishly dressed man continued to say, "There are many with outstanding sword skills in Great Yen. I've heard about many sword path elites. Sword freak Chen Wenjie, sword devil Yu Shangrong, sword slave Wang Haichao. Alas, compared to them, you still have a long way to go." Indeed. Yu Shangrong did not contradict the man's words. His current cultivation base was only at the 3-leaf stage. He was a far cry from his former self. "Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Karen, younger brother of Rolly's great General Carol." Karen smiled confidently. "Never heard of you." Carol, on the other hand, sounds familiar. Yu Shangrong wielded his sword with his right hand. He held it at an angle as he stepped forward. He was smiling, he clearly did not think much about Karen. A slight breeze ruffled his robes. Karen was filled with a sense of foreboding when he sensed Yu Shangrong's aura. Whiz. Karen spread his arms, and a huge Wolf King avatar appeared behind him. It was a 6-leaf Wolf King avatar. "A witchcraft formation has been laid here. Inside this formation, my strength can be temporarily boosted to the 7-leaf stage," Karen said. Yu Shangrong continued advancing with a smile on his face. Thud. 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 Whiz. When Yu Shangrong was 10 meters away from the Wolf King avatar, his 30-foot avatar appeared next to him. The avatar was in a horizontal position as though it was flying. 3-leaf? When Karen saw Yu Shangrong's avatar, he frowned slightly. Soon after, a sneer appeared on his face. "I've overestimated you." The black smoke from the forest gathered around the Wolf King avatar. At this moment, Yu Shangrong ran toward Karen. In just a blink of an eye, he vanished from sight. Karen was stunned. The world before his eyes seemed to distort and turned blurry. 3 shadows appeared to the left, right, and center. At the same time, Karen saw the leaves of the 3-leaf avatar spinning around a sword in a clockwise direction. Karen was shocked. There was no golden lotus. This was an avatar with only leaves. He wasted no time in releasing a burst of primal chi. Erupt. The primal chi from Karen's avatar spilled into the surroundings. "I'm sorry, but you're too slow." A sharp sword struck. The 3 souls were gathered. The sword seemed to have penetrated Karen's soul as it pierced his avatar before it pierced his chest. The battle was over. The entire place was silent. Yu Shangrong stood behind Karen, his back was straight, and his posture was poised. He was unbelievably graceful. His sword was still pointed ahead. Yu Shangrong did not care about Karen's life or death. Instead, he looked at the scarlet longevity sword. The 3 shining golden leaves spun around the longevity sword and vanished. This proved his hypothesis. Although the golden lotus's defense was formidable, the sharpness of the leaves was also remarkable. Karen pressed a hand to his chest as he fell to one knee, coughing violently. An incredulous expression could be seen on his face. Before the witchcraft had even completely boosted him, he was already killed. How did this happen? Why was this random Great Yen cultivator so powerful? You. Karen said with great difficulty, "Can you tell me why your name?" "So that I can rest in peace." Blood trickled out of the edges of his lips when he spoke, dyeing his robes red. Yu Shangrong turned around slowly. He did not even spare Karen a glance. He looked at the bundle lying between the 2 corpses as he raised his hand. The bundle flew up, its scent reminding him of a certain medicine. Survival pills? He smiled as he finally replied to Karen, Yu Shangrong. After revealing his name, Yu Shangrong flew up, mounted Bayan, and shot toward the horizons. Karen sat on the ground and chuckled to himself. Sword devil. No wonder. No wonder. All right, curse my rotten luck, then. He spat out another mouthful of blood. There was almost no chance that he could survive that sword strike. Nevertheless, his strong survival instinct kept him upright. I can't die. I can't die. Sword devil, there's too much that you don't understand about Roly. Karen muttered to himself feverishly as he removed his clothes and drew several peculiar symbols on his body with his blood. It did not take long before he was completely covered in his blood. Pa. 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 A figure walked out, clapping his hands. He looked at the and shrinking figure in the horizons with an expression of reverence and awe. No way, he did this. A 3-leaf cultivator killing a 6-leaf cultivator? Karen's head swiveled to look at the newcomer. The newcomer was peculiarly dressed. It seemed as though he did not notice Karen as praises flowed out of his mouth. How did he do that? A 3-leaf killing a 6-leaf? Did my eyes deceive me? Or is your 6-leaf cultivation base fake? No way, that's impossible. It can't be. Karen was puzzled. Hey, I'm talking to you. The peculiarly dressed man kicked Karen. Ah!